Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar merchandise review. This is going to be for the Avatar The Last Airbender Nendoroid Aang from GoodSmileCompany. So this has just started to release over the last couple of weeks. I think a small amount of people got this at the end of last year, but I think for the most part, most people getting this it'll be a 2023 release. So mine came in, as you can see here, still in the box. I'll open it up pretty quickly here and then cut to a more kind of like detailed review of it. So just as an example, here is the box. You can see obviously the Nendoroid. It's your typical chibi style figure. It's number 1867. It's the second Avatar universe, Avatar Legends figure, after the Nendoroid Korra that they released in, I think it was 2015, might have been 2016. So we've had one before, but it's the first Avatar The Last Airbender one, that's for sure. So we've seen pictures. I've covered this on my channel when it was first announced, of course. And you can see some examples of poses that you can actually do. So that out of the way, let's just really quickly get into opening this up here. So it is basically a Japanese figure, so it should be packaged, I think, pretty nicely overall. And there shouldn't be too much kind of messing around once we get inside. So yeah, as expected, it's just the tray and yeah, nothing else in the packaging apart from you get a bit of an instruction manual with sort of all the different kind of pieces and examples, like basically what to do, how to use it, that sort of thing. So actually there should be something else in the packaging. Let me just see here. Ah, yes, there is. So on the back of the cardboard is the Appa kind of insert. So I'll just take that off as well. That's why we do these checks, to make sure we have everything. So this is just taped onto the back here. Okay, so we'll just quickly open this up, show it off. So yeah, this is just your sort of Appa plastic kind of insert backing, which I'll just put off to the side here. So that's pretty nice, just by itself. And then here is everything you get in the plastic. So you can see here, multiple faces, multiple accessories, and then even, I think you can probably see it here, there's like extra arms, extra legs for different poses as well. So lots of stuff here. That's the big thing with Nendoroids, is the kind of posing options basically that you are given. So yeah, this just pulls off. And we get access to everything here. So here is our Aang Nendoroid in plastic. So multiple pieces of plastic here to sort of just protect it overall. So of course it pulls apart because of course you have to be able to you know, disassemble it and then put it back together and so on. So it's just held together with your kind of standard kind of like ball joints and stuff like that. So you can get the plastic off pretty nicely here and be quite customizable and stuff like that. If you do have other Nendoroids, of course, like you can basically swap parts between them because they're such a kind of like similar kind of style of thing. So there is Aang overall. So you see with more of the stern expression here, but again, the details are quite nice. The arrow tattoo on the hands as well. So that's all good. The outfit is very nicely detailed as well. And you can sort of see in there that, yes, his quite complicated Book 1 outfit with the way his stuff goes together is, I think, pretty accurately portrayed here. Overall, it is kind of more complicated than it needs to be, in my opinion. So there is the kind of standard Aang with just the sort of like standard open hands, standard kind of just standing legs. Then we'll get into the other faces here. So you have the smiley face Aang, which is probably one of the nicer smiley faces for Aang, in that on the chibi figure it doesn't come across as being like excessively big, but is fitting of kind of fun-loving Aang. So that's a nice face. You also get the Avatar State one here. Now, this is an interesting one where, of course, you can see the arrow is white looking at it from the front, but you can see it sort of fades into blue because the face swap is basically just a front of face swap. And so how would they have done the full avatar state? That would involve like changing his entire head, giving you a whole extra head with just the white arrow for the avatar state. So they took the approach of like they wanted to do this, so they give you the sort of fade from white into blue, where if you're looking head on, you don't really see much of the blue. And then we'll see if any of the hands have avatar state effects or not. But still, that's a relatively nice thing to do. They did this on the Korra figure as well. Of course, Korra doesn't have arrow tattoos, so the eyes were the only things really affected. But I think that's a good attempt from Good Smile to get that across. We do get our Momo here, so very nice. Most Aangs come with a Momo. And this is just like a normal Momo figure. Like, this barely feels kind of like chibified for the most part. Like, the head is maybe a slight bit bigger than you'd maybe expect, but for the most part, that's just a very accurate Momo. In the same way that the chibi Appa, the kind of Nendoroid Appa here, is more or less just like a slightly cuter kind of looking Appa overall. So what have we got here? This is the Aang sort of meditation pose legs. So this is an entire kind of waist kind of swap here to allow Aang to do a kind of sitting pose. So that's very nice. What else do we got here on the kind of top level overall? So two more, and then we'll get into the little bag of accessories overall. So you get your sort of like airball thing, because I think we're going to be able to do a pose. Is it you do this? I think this is the idea that you're meant to do it. They give you the meditation pose. It's not the same as the pose he does when he does the air scooter, but it's nice. So that's there. And then you get his book 1/2, I suppose, even some of 3, staff, which is quite nice. They don't seem to give you a splayed out one, of course, because that would be quite a big accessory. And then the bag here should have the stand and all that sort of stuff. So, yep, let's get into this. So, we've got our bunch of parts here. Let's see what we got. Clear out some of this plastic. Okay, so we have our stand. That's the standard Nendoroid stand with all the holes, of course. You get your standard Nendoroid, this, oh no, it goes this way, isn't it? Yeah, so there's your stand, of course, with the bit that plugs into his back to pose him whatever way you want, so that's fine. You get one sort of like effect part stand, which again, you just put an effect on and you pop it in here, and that allows you to hold something up in front of Aang. So that's nice. You get the holder for the backing part here. So this is for the Appa. So that just holds him here. So we can have it like right here in the middle of the frame here if we want to. So that's good for display purposes, of course. They give you an extra, I suppose, head ball joint. Yeah, that's the only like proper one like this. So yeah, they give you an extra one of these, I guess, in case you break it, and that's like one of the main parts. So that's nice to see as well. And yeah, then we just have to get into our bag of kind of extra hands and parts and stuff like this. So what do we have here? We have the what's that? Left hand for the glider, left hand for the glider, right hand for the glider. These, I guess, are, what, are they just replacement shoulders for Aang? We'll have to see if they do anything different, but it looks like they're just basically 2 different shoulder parts for him. Then what's going on here? So this is, I think those are just little things to kind of like they just placeholders basically in the joint kind of holes. I think they are just differently angled kind of thighs for Aang. So that's interesting. We'll see how that goes. I think that's to give him like a wide stance, is it? Based on the way it's orientated. Yeah, I think that's to just give him a bit of a kind of horse stance type pose. And then you have closed fist arms as well. So that's them. So let me open these up and we'll see what's going on here. Actually, do you know what? At this point, I'll mess around with the figure, exchange some parts, and I'll come back and cover some of that different stuff. Okay, so I'm back. I've messed around with the figure a little bit. I could talk about it a little bit more in terms of, like how good are the accessories that you actually get, how much can you pose it, and so on, and do more of a review, the comparison kind of part of it. So, so obviously the Appa backdrop is the Appa backdrop. You can choose to include it, not include it, and that's pretty much your options. The same goes for the Momo. Obviously, like the head moves, so there's a little bit of posability there as well. Beyond that, it's just, again, choosing what way you want to kind of pose it or display it. That's that. So then we come to the Aang. So you can see I've changed it quite a bit here to form this pose. So this is sort of Aang in the avatar state on top of an air scooter here. And I think it's pretty nice. The fists sort of put together. Obviously, as you can see there, they don't give you sort of like avatar state hands with the white paint on them. To get across the kind of white tattoo effect, of course. That might have been a little bit much. But I also feel like not really, considering almost the kind of weird extent to which they, give you kind of like other parts also on the figure. It's kind of weird, some of what they do here. So, getting into this, putting it together, yes, it can take a little bit of time to kind of construct the pose because you have to angle the stand properly to hold Aang up at this height. Having the stand actually hold the ball up, as you can sort of see here, you have to kind of put the stand in a kind of weird position. And again, to just get it holding it up a little bit with the parts that you have is a little bit complicated, but it looks pretty nice. And then you can do the one on the box where it's more of like Happy Aang with his kind of hand out as well, if you want to. But again, it's just to highlight that, this just swings out, of course, here on the stand. And otherwise it is just Aang sort of like hovering, and we can sort of like, whoop, absolutely sent him flying there. But anyway, you can just have Aang kind of like on the ground if you do so wish. As for changing the parts out, as you'd expect from Nendoroids, it is pretty simple. So with the head, all you do is you basically just kind of pull the head apart in half. So you take the Aang face off the front, and then you can just put one of the other ones on. So if you put the happy face on, of course, like so, it goes on. And like it's a pretty tight fit. You actually need to put quite a bit of kind of pressure on it to get it in nicely. But it does slot back together very well. So you can see immediately that's a huge difference from like the full avatar state kind of meditation pose to fun time meditating here with Aang. The waist, of course, literally just comes off like this, as you've probably seen before, to do this. And then you suddenly have Aang standing up, doing kind of meditation. And then this is where you get into the whole, like, the different arms and stuff like that. So, for the most part, this orientation of the arms, with this shoulder piece, this sort of, like, elbow and forearm piece, with this fist, there's not a lot you can really do here. You can sort of, do a little bit of a kind of, like, kind of fist kind of pumping kind of pose here, double fist pumping type thing here, gets across Aang's excitement, which is kind of nice. So that's pretty decent. The other thing you can do is just exchange kind of these out. So if you change just the shoulder piece, and for instance, if we put in, say, this, I think this is the way that this goes on, yeah, and then do this, you can see you can do slightly different things here to get the right angle that you want. That's the whole point of these Nendoroids, is they give you pieces to kind of really do whatever you want to. The other shoulder pieces, which have the sort of like indent in them, are kind of weird, because what they seem to do is it just sort of aims the kind of post of the arm a little bit further in. So if you put the hand in, it's sort of kind of reaching across his body a little bit. So you can sort of like have the hands a bit closer together if you want. So, it's very subtle. And just to sort of highlight the idea of like, this one sort of has the hand kind of like pointing down a little bit like this. This one almost like, you can't actually point it down, and so it's kind of pointing inwards a little bit. And then of course the other shoulder piece just has the hand pointing sort of like straight out. But again, it also depends on what elbow piece you use. So like if you put this one in with the kind of angled elbow piece, you can like have Aang's like hand come like all the way across his body just with using this sort of like combination. So, you know, there are definitely options here for sure, depending on what exactly it is that you want to do. And then of course you can't forget that you have all the different hand options as well. So if we just go back to something a little bit more normal here, like this with this, and then we maybe swap this out for, let's say we put this on his hand, so the hand that holds the glider staff. And again, this just pops in and out. It's quite nicely kind of molded here, so it fits kind of pretty perfectly into the hands. And you of course have the kind of fist bump with the staff as well, which is kind of nice, and you can do kind of whatever poses you want with him holding the staff. I'm going to guess there is roughly a way to get him holding the staff in both hands, but it could be quite complicated because you are going to have to line up basically these two hands somehow, and because it's not like full articulation as such, because you don't have like ball joints to adjust it slightly, you're just kind of choosing the right pieces and hoping you get the lineup the way that you want to. So there's that. Then we get to the leg pieces here. So you can see here they give them to you like this, which as far as I'm aware seems to just be a little post in there to just keep the kind of like joints like open, because otherwise you know, I think pretty much everything that has like the hole for the peg, they have something in it, and this is just to put one in here for the legs. And again, I think if I understand this correctly, this one is here primarily to just give him a little bit more kind of like leg articulation. So if you obviously take one of the legs off, it's on a ball joint, and so you can see here what you kind of have. The leg attaches in there, and then the ball joint kind of like goes on here. I think this is the wrong side, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so if we just do that, and then put this on like so. This is really awkward. Yeah, I think it's like this, and then it's coming off the back, I think. And then we can put the leg on like so, the foot facing out the right way, and then we also have the other leg, which also has these bits in it. It's a bit awkward here. Do I have the legs on the right way? I'm not actually sure almost at this point. Is it, or is it more like this? I think I actually might have these on backwards. It's a weird orientation, I will say that. Just trying to kind of in your head kind of think like, is that correct? I think it's meant to be more like this. I might have to look at the box here a little bit. So this is meant to be on this side, and the other leg is meant to be here. So it highlights, you know, it's really quick to change out the pieces, but it can be a bit awkward to like fully think like what exactly is kind of you're trying to do here. I think that's it. Does the box show which of the with this leg stance, which one is which? Okay, so it's coming out there like this. No, I think this is the right way, I think. Yeah, based on the packaging, I think this is the correct way, yeah. So, this is to give him a bit of like, you know, kind of like bending, kind of crouch down, sort of like horse stance. Like if we had the kind of the fist on here. If we had the fist here, you know, it looks kind of a bit like an earth bending stance, kind of going like that, which is kind of nice. So there are options with this figure for sure that I think are quite good. So if we just kind of set Aang up, standing up here, and clear some of this stuff out of the way. You can see there he is, kind of doing a little bit of an earthbending kind of style pose. The head, of course, rotates. You know, the main piece of articulation is definitely the head, because it's on the kind of like double swivel here with the kind of hinge piece as well. So that's where you get most of your articulation as such. Otherwise, you know, where it comes apart is a swivel, and then the only other place where there are ball joints are basically the hips, for some movement there. So that's kind of nice. But what's maybe missing here, if we just kind of include Momo as well, what's kind of missing on the figure is probably just more element effect parts, in that I think the faces that you get are good. These are I think the really obvious ones. Happy Aang, you know, Action Aang, and then Avatar State Aang. I probably might have preferred one set of Avatar State hands just to go with that. All the different arm options seem relatively nice. The ones where it's more about like turning the arms like slightly inwards, which I think is what these are meant for, they're a little bit kind of like niche in a way, like when am I going to use them? The different leg options I think are good to have sort of straight legged, and then the kind of fighting stance with the legs. The arms, of course, you get your more kind of like standard ones for like the elbows. You get the sort of like straight elbows as well. You get the bent elbows, straight elbows, and then pretty much all the hands that you'd want, which is like, you know, open hand, closed fist, glider holding hands. That's all fine. It's really just that the only like bending thing is this little ball. So overall, I like the figure quite a bit, and this is probably more of a thing with the Avatar kind of Nendoroids, is that so far there is only 2 of them. So if I bring in Korra here, you can see here, they do look quite nice next to each other there. Because the Korra figure was fantastic when it came out. It's getting a re-release, I think actually this month. I think within the last couple of weeks or within the coming weeks, this Korra is getting a re-release. So if you haven't got this one from like 2015, 2016, it is available again. And this is where, of course, the Nendoroids are customizable. So if we bring in like Korra's accessories, Korra did actually come with a fire effect part. And she did come with, you know, water bending stuff and so on. There's even like an air spiral that I need to kind of relocate again. And then, of course, you know, if you wanted to, you could put the Korra kind of parts on Aang if you wanted to, but it would kind of change the look quite a bit. But, you know, Korra, because she came with so many, like, bending accessories, she has a bunch of different kind of, like, effect kind of piece stands with her. So that's kind of good. So you could have, like, Korra, for instance, on top of the air ball that Aang comes with. Using Korra's effect parts, you can have Aang doing his bending, of course, which is kind of nice. And there should be, there is actually, I forgot this, yeah. There is the little earth effect part. Now, it's tiny, like the little rock that you get here, but at least it's something to do a little bit of kind of like earth bending with if you really wanted to, like kind of here. How does this work? Is the stands different? Or do I have this kind of set up incorrectly? Yeah, I think this is just disconnected from part of the stand. But, you know, you see the idea of like kind of how this works overall with the customization options. There's the Korra Avatar State face compared to the Aang one. So they roughly did it the same. The Korra one, obviously, you can sort of see there comes across a little bit more kind of like bluey, whereas the Aang one is more exactly white, but still very consistent across both of them in terms of how they did them. So that's nice. And then this is the bigger point, I suppose, going forward, is I want them to do more. Now, the thing with Nendoroids, of course, is that they're expensive. In my entire collection, I only have 3 Nendoroids. I have the Aang now, the Korra, and I also have Naruto. I have no other Nendoroids because for what they are quite expensive. That's the big problem here, is that at the cheapest, you're probably paying $55, $60 or something like that for one of these. Again, if you find a better place, you know, that's great. But for me, at least, trying to find somewhere to order them from, it's more like kind of $65, and then plus shipping for wherever it's from. And so they can get very expensive. So I'm glad they're not releasing them like super regularly, but occasionally, like, it would be nice to get another Nendoroid. Like, for instance, in this line, like, where is probably Katara you'd maybe want. I think Toph would make for a very good Nendoroid, because probably of the effect parts that we have, I would say Earth is definitely the one most in need of an upgrade in terms of the effect parts style stuff. But, you know, Azuko could give you a little bit more variety with the fire effect parts. And there's options with that sort of stuff. Like Sokka coming with all full kind of non-bender stuff will be very nice. That all that stuff seems like really cool if they decided to do more. And, you know, it's cool because, like, for instance, say, like, the Naruto one. The Naruto one also comes with a bit of a backdrop one. But he comes with Kurama, the nine-tailed fox. Tail beast. So, you know, there's some cool stuff that you can do with these. And even if you have the ones from other franchises, which is obviously part of the appeal, is that they kind of almost do an Nendoroid of like nearly every popular franchise, because GoodSmileCompany have so many licenses. But like I said, it's purely the pricing that is a bit of an issue. So, like, sure, you end up getting quite a lot of stuff in the box. The Appa backdrop is quite nice. You do get a stand, the pieces for the stand. You get the extra Momo, of course, one effect part, but then you get, like, you know, different faces, all this different bits and pieces of extras. But the thing is it still worth, for such a small figure, is it worth the €60 or something like that? And that's where the value proposition is maybe a little bit off. Like, the quality is high on this in terms of a material point of view, but when you bring in, like, the comparison, for instance, like, say these Wire Industries Chibi Aang figure, when it came out, I think it was like 25 or something like that. Look at this more recent Loyal Subjects Chibi Aang figure. It's smaller, but it's still very nice, and is actually probably more accurate to, like, the show's own chibi style, whereas this is the Nendoroid style of chibi. This is only like $5 in what the Five Below place in America, or more like $10 if you get it somewhere else. This is a very nice figure for a pretty low price point. And there's that. But then, because the price is so high on this figure, you can actually go for bigger figures of Aang for just the same sort of value. So, keeping with the kind of chibi style kind of type thing, what about this, the QMX Aang Q-Fig that comes on a full fancy looking base and stuff like that with the air symbol in it and all this effect parts, and there's also a Momo up there. You can get this for, I believe, basically cheaper than the Nendoroid. This whole figure here is cheaper. The same applies for this figure here, which, again, will be also very difficult to show on camera. But here is the Diamond Select Gallery Diorama Aang, which, again, has a beautiful air effect part, is also nicely done, nicely painted, and is much bigger. Now, obviously, it's a statue, it doesn't move or anything like that, but still, this is also cheaper than the Aang Nendoroid. Now, the last two figures are only like, what, $10 maybe cheaper compared to the much bigger kind of value in the other stuff. But that's the big point here with this, is that I think Nendoroid have that kind of reputation within the sort of like action figure kind of like statue market, for just being like such a well-known brand and having like a quality, they're nice, they're cute associated with them. But the premium price on them, it is hard to often justify buying a lot of them. Thankfully for Avatar at the moment, there are only 2 of them, and I don't believe there's been any more announced. Like, we're still waiting on GoodSmile to release the Pop-Up Parade Korra, which they announced at the end of like 2021 and still haven't done anything with. So, you know, we're waiting to see what happens here. And that's what it is as an Avatar collector who has taken the approach in, I'd say, the last year or so to really not buy that much stuff that's like, say, like Avatar action figures, because I find I get the action figures and I end up just kind of like putting them aside and not really doing much with them. And so I kind of lean more into the kind of statues that are just really nicely done and posed, and I can kind of just display as they are. And so the Nendoroids do have that nice thing of being like half and half. It's a statue that has exchangeable parts. It's not an action figure, but it has elements of an action figure. So it's cool. It feels like it's one of those kind of more like, if you are an Avatar collector, you probably need to have the Avatar Nendoroid in your collection. These two are probably two of the more standout pieces of Avatar merchandise, and you probably should get it, even if the price point is a bit off, ultimately. So I think that's basically everything I want to say about it here. So if you have any questions about the Aang Nendoroid, or your own thoughts on it if you've got it yourself, what are your thoughts on the Aang Nendoroid? And also, what character would you like to see them do next? They've done the main character from both shows. Who next? I think for on the Aang side of thing, they probably do Zuko or Katara next. If they're ever going to do another Korra one, I could see them they're either going to do, I guess, Asami, Mako, Bolin, or Tenzin. I'm going to guess. Not really sure. But like I said, Toph will be a great option over here. Even Sokka. Pretty much any character you'd almost be happy with to see them do as a Nendoroid. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.